Hey guys, my name is Liz and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the original story of Sleeping Beauty, which was inspired by a story called Sun, Moon, and Talia. This is the side of Disney they don't want you to see. But really fast, before we hop into that, I do just want to remind you guys to subscribe and like this video so I know that you enjoyed it. And of course, if you end up enjoying this video, be sure to also check out my other video where we talk about the Grimm's brothers story of Cinderella. And with that, let's hop right into this absolutely horrific and traumatizing tale of Sleeping Beauty. Now, of course, the Disney version of Sleeping Beauty starts off with the royal birth of none other than Miss Princess Aurora. And it is also at this time in the movie where we meet the three good fairies, Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather, who are all there to give Aurora a gift. Flora gives her beauty, Fauna gives her the gift of song, and just as Merryweather is about to give her gift, none other than the evil Maleficent shows up out of nowhere.
Seize that creature!
Now, due to her rage of being not invited and her suffering from extreme FOMO, Maleficent also chooses to gift Aurora with something rather interesting. And she goes on to say that the princess shall indeed grow in grace and beauty, beloved by all who know her, but before the sun sets on her 16th birthday, she shall prick her finger on a spindle and die. And then she goes and makes one of the most dramatic exit scenes I've ever seen in my entire life. She is one for the dramatics, y'all.
Stand back, you fool!
Now, the king and queen are obviously distraught over what just took place, but if you remember, Merryweather did not get a chance to dispose her gift upon Aurora yet. Now, although Merryweather can't undo the curse that Maleficent caused, she can tweak it just a little bit. So Merryweather changes the curse. Instead of having Maleficent die, she has her just fall into a deep, deep sleep, in which of course she can only be woken up by true love's kiss. And of course, King Stefan, rather still paranoid and worried about his daughter's safety, ends up condemning every single spinning wheel in the entire kingdom. And the three fairies also are still scared of Aurora's safety and decide that it's best that Aurora comes stay with them. They would raise her in a cottage just outside of town until her 16th birthday, which at sunset she would return to the kingdom. And they would also tell not a single soul about her whereabouts in order to protect her even more from Maleficent. And of course, the story Sun, Moon, and Talia essentially starts off the same with the birth of a princess named Talia. But instead of fairies giving her gifts, it's just several wise men. And instead of a gift, it's actually a prediction of her future, saying that she will be put in grave danger by a splinter of a flax. And of course, naturally, the king does what any father would do after hearing that your daughter's gonna die from essentially a sewing machine, and bans anything at all that resembles a flax from the entire kingdom.
I can't! Get out!
And now, many, many years later, Talia spots a woman outside the castle walls spinning a flax on a spindle. And of course, curiosity got the best of her as she invited the woman inside of the castle to get a closer look at the flax, as she had never ever seen one before. And while the woman was demonstrating how to use the spindle, a splinter of one of the flaxes flies off the spindle and slides right underneath her fingernail. And she passes out from the pain because ew. Ew, me too, girl, me too. I would be done. Now, once the king finds her, for some reason, he just assumes that she's dead. She just must be dead. But he turned the house that she had died in into a tomb for her to lay in. And he's just so struck with grief that he just abandons the house entirely and never revisits it. Now, going back to the story of Sleeping Beauty, it's the day before her 16th birthday. And Maleficent is just raging because she is so butthurt that after 16 years of searching, she just is still unable to find her. So she ends up sending her little pet crow out to go and look for Aurora. Oh, someone wanted to say hi. Now, of course, in order to blend in, the fairies said the whole time that they were there that they weren't allowed to use any magic whatsoever. And they also, instead of calling her Aurora, ended up calling her Briar Rose. Now, since tomorrow was Aurora's 16th birthday, the fairies had planned a little surprise party for her, just to celebrate a little something extra special. Surprise! We lied to you your entire life and hid you away from your parents so you could escape death and a dooming curse from an evil woman named Maleficent. Happy birthday! So So the fairies ended up sending Aurora out to go pick some berries so they could go and set up all the decorations for the little party. And while Aurora is out picking the berries, she's singing to herself and humming to herself very angelically. And while doing so, a nearby prince happens to hear her. And of course, like any other Disney classic, he goes off to find her. And nearby, Aurora tells some of the animals that had gathered around to listen to her about a man she kept repeatedly dreaming about. And the animals spot men's clothes hanging from a branch close by, which just so happens to be the prince's clothes, because he had just taken off his jacket and shoes. Alright, so my camera died. It's the next day and we're back, so let's get back to the story. And when they take them, he obviously chases after them because the animals literally just robbed the man. And then when they get back, they're of course wearing the outfit, pretending to be the guy from her dreams, and they dance around and clown around. And at this point in the movie is where we get my absolute favorite Disney song. Cannot convince me otherwise. I know you, I've walked with you once upon a dream. Now the prince overhears Aurora singing, and she's obviously much better than me, but due to copyright infringement, you're stuck with me. And of course, like every Disney classic, he ends up joining in with her song, and then they just, you know, get to talking. And then the prince asks for Aurora's name, and this is when we get this absolute gem of a video.
When will I see you again?
Oh, never, never! This evening!
Where?
At the cottage!
And so it looks like the prince will be joining us for dinner tonight. Going back to the cottage, the fairies' preparation for the festivities tonight are just an absolute hot mess. The cake is practically sideways, and the dress, well, the dress speaks for itself. So the fairies end up giving in, and they end up using their magic in order to prepare for tonight's party. But of course, Flora and Merryweather start arguing over make it blue, make it pink, make it blue, make it pink. But unbeknownst to them, their magic was literally misfiring so bad that it was going up the chimney and basically making a giant beacon saying, oh my god, we're here, we're right in this cottage, come and find us. And obviously it catches the attention of Maleficent's crow. However, at this point is when Aurora ends up coming home, and they surprise her with everything that they had prepared the entire day. And it is also at this point that she shares the news that she met a completely random man walking in the woods and invited him back to the cottage. Because that's, you know, there's not a lot of logic in these old Disney movies. So as a rebuttal, the fairies actually share the news that she is in fact Princess Aurora, and she's already betrothed to Prince Philip from a nearby kingdom. And the crow obviously overhears all of this, so he races back to Maleficent to let her know, hey, I found her, she right there. So the day has come, it's Maleficent, it's Aurora's birthday, and they're sneaking back into the castle. And they sit her down in one of the spare rooms that are in the castle, and they gift her with a crown, but she's just hysterically crying, mourning the fact that her literal entire life was a complete lie, and she will also never ever get to see the man of her dreams ever again. While Aurora is crying, however, is when she hears a voice singing and calling out to her. This obviously being Maleficent, but she doesn't know that, because out of all of the solutions everyone came up with, nobody ever thought to just tell Aurora about the curse. I just feel like sharing that news would have saved us a lot of time here, but I digress. A light appears, it pulls her into a trance and leads her up a hidden staircase. And at this point the fairies realize that Maleficent is here, and they run after Aurora, but obviously they're too late. The light leads her right up the stairs and turns itself into a spindle. Aurora, still in a trance, pricks her finger on the spindle, causing her to fall into a deep, deep sleep. Now going back to the story of Talia, a king from a nearby kingdom ends up discovering the house that Talia's body was laid to rest in, because homegirl is not dead at all. She's just taken a little nap. So he breaks in to explore the home, already off to a quite interesting start, and he discovers Talia on the floor, at which point he attempts to wake her up. Now, here's where things get a little bit weird in her story, and I do just want to give a quick trigger warning for those watching. If you don't want to hear anything about SA, I advise skipping ahead about like a minute. Now, the king doesn't think Talia's dead, but he does at one point just give up at trying to wake her up. So he moves on to the next logical solution in his mind. He is just so captivated by Talia's beauty that he rapes her and then leaves. And to also add insult to injury, he impregnated her with twins. And 9 months later, Talia gives birth to the twins while still unconscious. And lucky for her, some fairies, similar to the ones in Aurora's story, end up coming and helping with the birth, and they also help the babies breastfeed. But in some way that I could not tell you how, one of the babies starts sucking on Talia's finger, and in doing so, pulling out the splinter, waking her up. A hell of a lot less romantic than true love's kiss. Talia is grateful for the babies for saving her life and decides that she'll take care of them, not even realizing they're her own children. And let me tell you, the story is only just getting started. Now, bouncing back to Aurora's story really quick to finish that up, the fairies lay Aurora down on a bed and just cry over the fact that they failed at the literal one and only job that they had. And so the only solution to Aurora's deep sleep that the fairies could possibly come up with was to put the entire kingdom also to sleep, up until Aurora also wakes up. And I don't understand their thought process behind this literally at all, because really they had no idea who Aurora's true love was. So imagine if they had put him to sleep along with the rest of the kingdom and then they just like shot themselves in the foot with that. Like, in all reality, when you think about it, this is a horrible plan. But they go through with it anyways, because like I said earlier, there's not a lot of logic in these old Disney movies. And while they're putting everyone to sleep, they overhear Prince Philip's father talking about how he fell in love with a peasant girl in the forest. And they obviously realize that Philip was talking about Aurora, and so they rush off to go find him, because if you remember, Aurora had invited him to go and visit the cottage. So Prince Philip shows up to the cottage just like the girl had asked him to. However, Maleficent had set up a trap to capture him, and so she takes him out of the cottage just as the fairies are arriving. And as they walk into the cottage, they realize that Maleficent had taken Prince Philip back to her lair, and the fairies decide to go and rescue him. So they sneak right past all of the armed guards, and they find Prince Philip chained up in Maleficent's dungeon. The fairies break him out, and they give him a sword and a shield. After fighting off all of the armed guard once again, they make their way towards the kingdom. My light just died. Again. I'm gonna lose my mind. Now, Maleficent is realizing that Prince Philip managed to make his way out of her dungeon, so she casts a spell on the entire kingdom, causing these trees to grow that just have absolutely massive thorns on them, making it nearly impossible to get past. However, the prince just goes right on through, chopping all of the vines down with his sword as he makes his way towards the castle gates. So at this point, Maleficent turns into a giant dragon that he has to now fight. One big fight scene later, Prince Philip ends up throwing the sword, hits Maleficent in the heart, ends up killing her. So he makes his way into the castle to go find his true love. And he bestows upon her the kiss of true love, waking her up, but not just Aurora, but also the entire town. And they get married and they all live happily ever after. But a not so happy ending for our other princess, Talia. More time has passed by, Talia raising the kids on her own in her house with the help of the fairies. And at some point, the original king that had gotten her pregnant in the first place remembers that Talia exists, and yet again visits the house once more to check on her. Absolutely disgusting man, if I would even call him that. And to his surprise, he not only finds Talia, but also finds 2 kids. And he is overjoyed by his new discovery and tells Talia that he's the one that got her pregnant and the babies belong to him. So he ends up staying with them for a couple of days and they grow closer and closer. But obviously he's a king, can't stay in this random house forever, so he goes back to his kingdom. But here's the problem with that. The king is so infatuated with Talia and his kids that he just keeps repeating their name to himself. This repeatedly, Sun, Moon, and Talia, Sun, Moon, and Talia. And a quick side note, this man is married. So of course, after a couple days of only hearing Sun, Moon, and Talia over and 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 over again, she is stuck thinking to herself, what the hell is this man on about? So she threatens the king's secretary to get him to tell her everything. And the secretary tells the king secret of his secret family. And of course she's not happy about this at all, honestly, as she should be. Your husband is a creepo. So she actually comes up with a pretty good plan. She ends up going to the secretary and writing a letter posing as her husband, essentially saying that the king really misses his kids. So of course Talia sends the kids over, and the queen tells the cook to kill the children, cook them, and feed them to the king for dinner. What the actual is wrong with these people? She really had me going in the first half. Really had me going. Now, thank God for the kids. The cook is not a total psychopath and ends up giving them to his wife to keep them safe. Now, the entire time the king was eating his dinner, the queen kept saying weird and creepy stuff, basically alluding to the fact that he was eating his own children. But obviously he would never guess that that is what she was talking about, because why on earth would someone cook and serve infant babies for dinner? So he just ends up getting annoyed at the comments she keeps making, so he just gets up and leaves dinner. And he is so over her at this point that he just leaves and stays in a villa for a couple of days. So the queen is happy but not yet satisfied with her demented plans. So she has the secretary write a second letter, also posing as the king, saying that he misses Talia and that he wants her to come and visit him at the kingdom. So of course, when Talia shows up, the queen literally screams in her face, "Are you the whore who's been enjoying my husband?" And essentially tells Talia that she's gonna burn her at the stake. And Talia fails at trying to convince the queen to spare her, so she ends up going with plan B and asks the queen if she can undress before getting burnt to death, just so her clothes don't get ruined in the process. And the queen agrees, not because she gives a damn about Talia, but mainly because she wants her dress.
Oh, that jacket is tight! Now run that shit, bitch! Yummy!
So Talia starts undressing as slow as she possibly can and starts crying as loud as humanly possible. And the king, who just so happened to be back from his little escape from his wife at the villa, hears Talia crying and runs into the castle to see what the hell is going on. And of course finds Talia practically naked, staring face to face with his wife. So he screams at his wife, rightfully so, demanding an explanation, in which the queen responds with, "Not only am I gonna burn your side whore alive, but I also fed you your children for dinner. How do you like that?" So the king is obviously disgusted by this, and he pulls Talia aside and he orders the queen, the cook, and the secretary to all be burnt at the stake. Now the queen and the secretary obviously both meet their fiery end. However, when it's the cook's turn to be cooked, he confesses the truth that he didn't in fact kill the kids, cook them, and serve them for dinner. He actually just gave them to his wife to keep them safe. So of course, after the king was reunited with his kids, he rewards the cook with riches beyond belief. And the king lives happily ever after with Sun, Moon, and Talia. So that was the original story of Sleeping Beauty. Of course, let me know which one you liked more in the comments, True Love's Kiss or Stockholm Syndrome Gone Wild. And of course, please like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more future content. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye! The fairies... Shit, do I really have a dead battery? Well, we'll see how far I get with this dying battery that's flashing repeatedly red at me. Andy, do you mind? It's my dog. I'm gonna lose my mind.